Hi, Lisa Schermerhorn here, and welcome to my show where truth lies. And I'm thrilled to have someone who I consider a good friend, Michael Jaco. He's an amazing person who's actually helped me quite a bit in my life, and I'm excited to share him um, in this video, in this podcast, and also his perspective in this book, where We Are Quantum. He's a former Navy SEAL Team 6. CIA operator, intuitive guide, life-changing trainer, author, and speaker. We're going to be talking about remote viewing, and this is something I find so fascinating. So, welcome, Michael, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. Looking forward to this. It should be really good.
Yeah, so I'm curious because where was the moment where you discovered this whole idea of quantum? Like what was there something that happened in your life that made this change for you?
Yeah, it's a specific moment. I was at a what was called the Tracker School. Tom Brown ran this school for basically looking into remote viewing, and he did call it that called Apache like viewing. It's a secret arts and so forth. So he was teaching this. And basically, it was just a meditation. You do a meditation along with going down a trail. So you would go to a trail you haven't been to before, and you'd sit at it and you kind of meditate, and you're with the intention of going down the trail with your mind. And I'd never done anything like this before, and I was like kind of skeptical that it would actually work. So we went back and we did a long form meditation. And the first time I did it, I fell asleep because I was in Navy SEAL, and I was like a week off for being, all the hardcore stuff that I did as Navy SEAL. It was kind of like a nice break. So I fell asleep the first time. I was in and out, and it's like, oh, I didn't get anything that time. So we did it. He did it again, and it was a large group of people that were doing it, like well over 100. So I stayed awake this time, and I just imagined my consciousness going down this trail and seeing what I saw. So a trail I'd never gone down before. So I was in my mind's eye. I'm going down this trail, and then after the meditation, you go and walk the trail and see if what you saw in your mind's eye was what the trail was like. And it was amazing. And so there were things in the trail that was like, unique because it was in a pine barrens in New Jersey. There was a stream that ran through it, but in the area where my trail was, there were no streams. And I've walked this area many times. I've never seen any water source because I saw a water source going through. So I come up on this one area, and it goes up, and which is kind of rare in the Pine Barrens too. It's all flat. So I come up, and there's a spring that comes out of the ground, goes across my trail, and then goes back underground. And if I hadn't seen it physically, I would never have believed that my mind's eye had seen that, but it did. So that was the start of my quantum realm experience. From there, I perfected it and then started using it in combat zones. So that's where it really became
Wow.
very, very strong, and I had some amazing experiences with it.
So were you the only one in your group that had this ability, or were there others in the group as well?
It's kind of rare because we're super analytical in the military. Very this, do that. You don't let any other outside thoughts or anything come in. But fortunately, in the SEAL teams, we're able to think outside the box. We're very creative. We do things that are impossible because everybody else thinks that, oh, you can't do this because this is the way we do things. But we would work outside that. So that was good. I had the creativity that was there. And then tapping into the quantum realm with the remote viewing, I was able to go really, really deep. But yeah, I was probably, as far as I know, the only one that was doing anything like this. Now, some people had experiences with it. They had like that, gut feeling, and just something's not right. And I heard that from a lot of people that have been in combat before, and Vietnam vets and so forth, but no one that I knew of that was a remote viewer. And so then when I started doing it, other people started seeing that I was doing it. I could teach some people. Not everybody's open to it because it's such a, really outside the box. It's way outside the box. And once a few people got it, then it was amazing. And other people started to get more involved with it, but it was very rare. I would say less than 1%. So it's kind of interesting. I'm like the SEAL teams it's like 1% of the military.
Right.
And at one time I was in the 1% of the SEAL teams, which is SEAL Team 6. And here I am doing, what the 1% of the 1%ers or the 1%ers doing. So it's very rare to do this kind of stuff. But as we know, it's everyone's capable of it. You just have to learn to open your mind and believe that this is a reality that's available to everyone, and then you can tap into it.
I remember reading a book, I want to say 20 years ago, about quantum physics. I think it was Larry Dossey, and he talked about the Russians were actually using it to spy. And I'm sure then this became something that went back and forth that the US was using it as well. You know anything about that program?
Yeah, I've talked to some of those people, throughout time, and it's it's they have a regimented system. Now, my system is, design unique, I guess, in everybody's individual, of course, but I don't go by any format. I just have an idea what I want to look at, and then I go look at it. Of course, not to interfere with anyone, because then I feel that you would lose this capability. So it's sort of not always not to interfere, not to cause any problems. I just look at things, and I make sure that I look at things that could have a impact for humanity, not for my own personal benefit, but for humanity as a whole. And when I do that, I have great results. There have been a couple times I've heard of other people doing this and using it for personal benefit, and then they lose that skill. So, fortunately, I've never lost a skill because I just do it for the benefit of all humanity, and it really works out great.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because, it's when you get a gift, consider it a gift from God or the universe or whatever, and if you abuse it, I mean, imagine using it to look at the lottery numbers, things for personal gain, and that would be a reason why you might lose it. And I'm curious because there are people who could possibly use that as being a psychic voyeur, right? To go in and check people out. Are there ways to block that?
Yeah, and that's where remote influencing comes in. So you
Okay.
can create an actual bubble from the quantum realm and keep people from coming in with that with ill intention. And I do that. I actually go into demonic realms as well and influence those realms. We can talk about that a little bit, but the influencing came later, much later. I had heard people that were doing some of this work in the quantum realm, and I always wanted to do it. And then I had Archangel Michael experience where this really came in.
Okay. Talk to me about that, about Archangel Michael, because I call him in a lot with my work, and I'm curious, everyone has different experience with him.
Yeah, so here I'm in a combat zone. I'm in Iraq. I'm at the presidential palace. We had they had these roll-in little vans or whatever that we were sleeping in, and there was like me and one other guy and one side, and there was a bathroom in between, and then another couple guys on the other side. So it was a good size, and there were several of them, and the people that were doing the Ambassador Bremer protective detail, which I was running head of, we all lived in this area. So it was outside the palace in this one area close to it, but close to it. So we would hear mortars come in and they would land ineffective fire pretty regularly. I think I was there maybe 3, 4 weeks at the time. Saddam Hussein had just been captured, and after he was captured, we started getting a lot of terrorist attacks, car bombings, and random shootings, mortar attacks, like I'm describing. But the mortar attacks for the greater part were pretty much ineffective. They just land in areas that didn't cause any damage. They just woke you up at night, and that was kind of a bummer. But then you learn to go right back to sleep if they didn't blow you up. So I was dealing with that, and I I woke up one night. I was floating out of my body. I knew I was doing an out of body. I was having an out of body experience. I was completely cognizant of everything that was going on, just kind of like we're talking right now. So I'm out of my body. I was wanting to do this, and they always said look down so you get the perspective that you are out of your body. So I looked down and I was blown up, and I was like, I'm not having an out of body experience. I'm actually dead. I'm leaving. My
Wow.
soul's leaving my body, and I was like, this is such a bummer because I'm having such a great uh, time helping people with my remote viewing skills. I'm keeping people safe, and I think I could have really used that a lot. And then I felt this presence, and I looked up from my body, and then I saw Archangel Michael, wings spread out, looking at me, massive, like 11, 12 feet tall. And then I was like, wow, it's an angel. An angel's come to take me to heaven. And so I look into this angel's eyes, and this love comes into my body. It's like every cell in my body lit up with love. And then I was like, I felt a whoosh. And then I like set up and I'm back in my body. An explosion, massive explosion happens just off from where these trailers were. And I was like, wow, the angel put me back in time, put me back in my body. I'm going to be able to go forward. So I'm dealing with that. So quantum realm, like on next level, just happened to me. So I'm dealing with that, and there's things that I saw, like there was a wall that was separating us from the palace, and I would walk around it every day, and I thought it was a concrete wall. Like normally in the U.S., you pour concrete walls. There, they build them, they put brick and they cover them with concrete. So I saw I in my in my vision where I saw myself dead, there were all these bricks, and I was like, where do those bricks come from? So I'm walking past this wall like a couple of days later, and I'm still trying to process, what had happened to me. And I saw bricks. Part of the wall was starting to fall, and it was bricks. And I was like, oh wow, this wall is made of bricks. So when that rocket came in, it blew part of the wall, and that's where I saw the bricks. So it became more real to me. I didn't even know it was Archangel Michael at the time. So I started doing the research and looking at angels, and then I saw Archangel Michael, and I was like, "That's the angel that was there." And of course, he's the angel that protects warriors and so forth. I was like, "That's perfect." So I would say another trip later. So I'm processing this, I'm working through this, and I'm like, "Wow, this is amazing." So my remote viewing is going to the point where I was doing it real time. I would look up the road before we would leave, and if there was a attack that I would see, I would stop. I would hold up my group. Then it got to the point where I'm seeing days and then a week in advance. So it really started accelerating. I said that angel gave me superpowers. So I came back on another trip, and so I would do the remote viewing before we go out the gate. There was like a gate that opened up into this one road called Kadisha Highway that would go to the airport where we pick people up or drop people off. And that was the most dangerous road in Iraq because there was lots of attacks on that road. So we go out the road, and I'm really tired, I guess. And I forgot to do the remote view, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't do a remote view before we left. And then I got the feeling that, oh no, we're about to get hit. Somebody's going to hit us right now. And then I was like, oh, we're gonna get killed. And then the thought came into my mind: send out the thought of love as if every cell in your body is sending it out, just like the love that came into every cell in my body from Archangel Michael. So I was like, I don't what? And then it was like, do it. So I was like, ooh, I started sending it out like a big bubble that went out. And I was like, oh, we're gonna get hit, we're gonna get hit. And then it started to dissipate as we moved further up the highway, and then it was gone. I was like, what was that? And then we get back to our base. Just after we left our base, another truck convoy came out that was part of our group, and they got hit by but in that same area with RPGs and rocket propelled grenades and small arms fire and so forth. Fortunately, those guys weren't killed; they were hurt, and their vehicle was absolutely just. I don't know how they lived, but they were maybe some of that Archangel Michael energy was still floating around there, kept them alive. But from that point on, I started using remote viewing and remote influencing and influencing places where I would go. So, for instance, I would come into a city that had been under attack, terrorist bombings. This is further many years later in not Iraq, but in uh, Pakistan. So Pakistan had more attacks during the time I was there than terrorist attacks than any other place in the world. It was crazy how many attacks were going on there. So the city that I came into, Lahore, was having all these attacks. So when I came in, the attack stopped because they put up a bubble of love around the whole city. And then I had to go to another city for a few weeks to do some work there, and Islamabad. And then when I going to that city had been under attack. When I left Lahore, it started coming under attack again. I got to Islamabad, and the attack stopped there. And then I went from Islamabad to Peshawar, and there were attacks happening in Peshawar. And when I got to Peshawar, the attack stopped, and the attack started again in Islamabad. So I'm like, all right, so this is real. I'm actually doing this. I'm stopping these attacks. And then I got to the point where how can I take it to the next level? Because when I would leave, these attacks would happen again. It's very frustrating. Uh, so I started to, on a quantum realm, I started to connect with people that did not want these attacks. And as I connected with people in those environments, I anchored in the love vibration there. And in all those cities, there hasn't been that I was there's not been attack there since. So the quantum realm is absolutely amazing. And the things that we can tap into are phenomenal. So the belief is one of the things you have to, like, you have that perfect book, and in the belief is a lie. You have to like learn that some beliefs that we are, very focused on are lies,
Right,
and you do have the power.
right.
Like, Jesus said, these things that I do, you will do, and even greater. And we're in
Right.
that time now where we're actually doing greater. And I think that's one of the things that we as humanity need to really focus on. So I'm really glad you're doing this book. This book should help awaken a lot of people.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. And something that came to me when you were talking about you were floating over your body and you were with Archangel Michael was the idea that there's no such thing as time. So almost like that you were brought back moments before everything happened. Like you had the opportunity to go back and time travel and re-experience it and placed in another place. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think everybody needs to be aware of that too. That's a great point because I believe, can, as a collective, can change timelines. We know things are moving in a certain direction. Maybe we're moving towards a war, conflict, or something. We can change that through a collective, consciousness, and move from one timeline that's very prominent to another one, which is not prominent maybe at the time being, but because we focus on that, we don't want this timeline. We can create another timeline that we jump into and go around the negative one. So it's very amazing once you start to, like we have, have experiences in the quantum realm, and once you have those experiences, then there's limitless potential for all of the things that we want to experience, and with a collective, it's even more powerful. Like I described, when I would collectively tap into a group of people and focus on no attack coming. The love bubble from
Yeah.
like Archangel Michael, protective bubble around that city, and it still exists even still today.
You know, it's so counterintuitive when you think about a love bubble. And I learned that about forgiveness as well. Because you're like, wait a minute, these people are attacking me. They want me dead, or they've done really awful things. And then you turn around and send them love and forgive them. Like that doesn't make sense. And what I have found in my own life is when I've done that, miracles happen. It's we're not meant to carry all that. And I would imagine, you know, especially being in war and everything that you've been through, it must have been hard to let go and forgive. I mean, I'm sure you must carry, there's a lot of death, there's a lot of destruction, a lot of evil out there. and having to deal with how do you send a love bubble when you're in the middle of that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And it is very hard for a lot of people. I do muscle testing with this, and I have people come up on stage, and I've done this for decades now, showing people the power of when you focus on anger, how you're weak in muscle
Yeah.
testing. A lot of people think that if I'm angry, I'm going to be angry and I'm going to have power. I'm going to accomplish a lot of stuff, and they see they're weak. And then I show them how love is, makes you like super powerful, like a superhuman, Superman, Superwoman,
Right.
powerful. Even, and I have the rest of the audience, sending anger and fear and so forth at them. And if I don't do anything, I just have the audience, send anger, fear, and then they're weak. And then if I have them, the audience, I have them bubble up with love, and I have the audience send them, and then they're strong, and vice versa. If they're having anger issues or so forth, if they think anger or fear, which is also a very great negative, I'll have the audience send them love, and that makes them powerful as well. So you get to play with these energies in this quantum realm, and you see it for everyone can see it, but and still after seeing that, I've been to events where I show everybody, and then someone will say, "Well, we'll ask a question. It's like, well, how do I like so and so after they've done so and so?" And I'm like, ah, oh. It's so the love we've all heard, love is the most powerful force in the universe, and I can vouch for that. I've learned that on a very great level. But a lot of people don't understand that the unconditional love. It's not like you're like, like you do for your sweetheart,
Right.
for your baby, for whatever. You love them or your pet. It's a unconditional love. You're just sending the thought, the energy of love out, and that love is extremely powerful, and it can move mountains. It can do a lot of different things. For me, I've sent the power of love to a lot of terrorist threats that we had out there, and then there's only one that I know of that went to the light. The other ones were they succumbed because they're using the negative forces that are out there. There's negative and positive forces. So the negative forces, the dark side, if you will, they're using those forces for their energy. But the light and the love is the most powerful force in the universe. So if I focus that love at them, surround them with that, and not in a threatening or violent way, just sending that love, that's all I do. Uh, they have the option at that point to either, embrace the light, the love, or stay in the darkness. And the darkness doesn't like that. They get power from that darkness. And with the light coming and surrounding this being that has been utilizing the dark forces leave and makes them vulnerable. And usually they're gone for pretty quickly after that, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've done that with forgiveness, and I had someone who I hadn't spoken to in 14 years. And
Mm.
I did the forgiveness work, and nothing else had changed. I hadn't tried to contact them, I hadn't done anything. And 3 months later, I get a call. I noticed things have changed between us. How, I'd like you back in my life. How can we make this happen? I was like, what? I must drop my phone. I mean, it really does create miracles. And I know you've also talked about weather, and being able to move and change weather. I'd love you to talk about that. Are you using the same techniques when you're doing your remote viewing when you see like a hurricane barreling down on Florida? How does that work?
Yeah, you can calm storms down, and you can push the storms, or you can bring weather as well. There were times where I was in locations around the world where they had drought and I would pull in rain, and so they didn't have drought. There were times where, like for instance, last year in the United States, I predicted there were going to be lots of hurricanes, and I said there would be the category 5 and above. And so I was like, get ready. So we're going to send, because I've been training people for many years talking about this. We're going to send the love. We're going to calm these storms down. And sure enough, there was like storms are coming in. I gave the location that they would hit most times, and I was accurate with that. I said there was one coming to Houston, and everybody's like, no, it's not going to Houston. It's going to, going into Mexico. It kind of skirted the Yucatan Peninsula, Cancun area, and then it was supposed to make a left and go into Mexico. But I said all along it's coming to Houston, and well before it even came into the Gulf of Mexico at the time. And so I said, we can calm this storm down. It was a Cat 5, and it was a very, very high Cat 5, almost like the next level. And when it was coming across, and when it comes into the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of times they'll ramp up again and get very, very powerful. It never did. It stayed just barely a hurricane level 1 and Cat 1, and then it came into Houston, and it didn't cause as much damage, obviously, as it would. But I attribute that, and I've been working with Texas for a long time because I was like, you guys, we're in drought. I was like, I keep sending you guys rain. You guys got to do it now. So I kept saying, it's like, you guys ready? Because there's a lot of forces. There's negative, dark forces that are trying to keep you guys in drought. You have to use these energies. So they finally started getting it, over time. And a lot of those people helped with that hurricane, calming the hurricane down. It actually worked. So there were a lot of other hurricanes that came in. Unfortunately, the one that devastated by flooding, because they couldn't take these hurricanes and ram them into us, on a high level here along the Florida coast. The hurricanes caused a lot of flooding, but it was well off the coast, and we downsized it. It didn't cause as much damage, even when it came ashore. There were several of them that came ashore in Florida. They didn't cause as much damage as they were. There was another one that was supposed to cause massive damage in Tampa, Cat 5, and we did the same thing. We just before it came on shore, it downgraded from a 5 to a 2, and then it came ashore. It was just barely a 2, maybe, and it downgraded again very quickly to a Cat 1. So it's amazing, the things that we can do with our consciousness. And at some point, I don't think we're going to get these storms at all, but that's another level. I think that humanity has to rise to reach, the point where we can completely stop,
Right.
Earthquakes, tsunamis. I actually was involved in calming a tsunami that was headed for Hawaii after there was a massive earthquake in, I think it was Chile, and it was the same situation that happened before, and it was a massive tsunami that had killed many people in Hawaii. So me and another group called the Earth Keepers at the time, we focused our consciousness, and I imagine my consciousness entering the tsunami, the water, the energy in the water, and calming it, and then finally when it reached Hawaii, same situation as happened before. It came on, and it barely caused a ripple. It was a very, very small wave when it finally hit. So we can, do a lot of these things through consciousness.
That's so amazing. Now, I have a question because you have positive forces and then you have negative forces all trying to create things that counter each other all the time. I always hear the word love wins or God wins. When you have those forces, because the negative can be very powerful as well, what do you find in that when you're calling love and the universe in? What happens when you're countering something really dark and negative?
First time I did this, I'd heard of people going after dark entities and using whips and all kind of crazy. There were I've been into the martial art world very deeply, and when you reach a certain level, you start to use your consciousness instead of your physical uh, capabilities. So that's kind of the realm that I was in. So my teacher at the time was talking about how he would go into the demonic realm with whips and knives and so forth, and throwing knives, and work on the demonic realm. So it's like, wow, at some point I want to be able to do that. So sure enough, I'm in Iraq, and that one missile that almost killed me, I believe that was from going after a demonic force.
Right.
So I was looking for the person, remote viewing, the person that was involved or in charge of doing the terrorist attacks that were happening at the time, the car bombings, mortaring, and all that kind of stuff. So I saw who it was physically. I didn't know the name at the time. It was Zarqawi, and Zarqawi eventually would be hit by my team, former SEAL Team 6 group, they basically directed a missile strike on his compound. But and this was after I worked on him. So this is how it worked in this dark realm that I'm talking about. So I saw him physically. I saw him from this realm, just like I would remote view the trail or remote view the road. I can see on in the physical realm from my consciousness. So I'm seeing who is doing the attacks. And then I saw a demon on him.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, he's got a very bad demon. And so I'm like, I didn't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I guess I'm gonna kick this demon's ass, you know? So this demon like turned on me and it was massive and it was very threatening and way outside of my abilities at the time. So I was like, whoop, right back to my body. And I was like, wow, that was crazy. Well, like a day later, I'm rising out of my body, like I talked about, because the demonic realm can, come into other people and influence other people. So I believe that's, on hindsight, that's what happened. So obviously I was a little hesitant of going back there and trying that. So I started when I had the sending the love bubble out. When I had that experience, I'm like, I'm going to do that to Zarqawi. So I'm just going to send the love bubble out because it was very effective, and that's what I did. I started doing that, and I every day I would think about him and I would send him love. I would send the love bubble and I would surround him with love, and then eventually, like I said, my old SEAL team, SEAL Team 6, uh, came in and called in a missile strike on his compound and took him out. And that I would have that same experience with, uh, and everyone knows this one. Maybe you don't know Zerkow, and there's like a handful of others I can tell you about. I did the same thing, and missile strikes or my old SEAL team would come in and take it. So it's interesting. My old SEAL team, SEAL Team 6, and even the SEAL team that I was their SEAL Team 6 has squadrons. There's four different at the time when I was there, or three, and they moved to four different squadrons. Who knows how many is there now? But I was with Red Squadron. So Red Squadron was the one that actually came in and did the Osama bin Laden hit. Now, intuition comes into this and remote viewing and all these things. So I'm remote viewing, where is Osama bin Laden? So I was in Pakistan at the time, and I was like, he's here in Pakistan. He's not in the place I'm at. I was in Peshawar, and I was like, where is he? So I'm looking, and he's just outside of Islamabad. I can see him. He's in a compound. So we're working with this one doctor, and the case officer, CIA case officer that was working with this doctor, because he would go to the border and work on the terrorists, as we would call them, the fighters that would go across the border and fight American soldiers, then come back and hide in Pakistan. They would let them do that, of course. So, of course, because Pakistan harbors terrorists, Osama bin Laden, and then they just recently had a terrorist attack, unfortunately, up in, I guess, India. So I was like, how can we, overcome this? So I'm thinking. So this doctor was in the car, and this CIA case officer was working with them, and I got intuitively that he somehow was going to lead us to Osama bin Laden. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So the case officer, she'd met with him a few times. I was like her security, and she was like, I'm gonna dump this guy. And I'm like, you can't do that. He's going to lead us to Osama bin Laden. And she looked at me quizzically, and I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, I think he's going to lead us. You need to keep him. I think he's going to lead. And so sure enough, he did. He's the guy, if you ever saw the movie, Old Dark 30, where this doctor goes to a compound that they suspect Osama bin Laden is in, and he uses tongue suppressors on the children. He's looking, oh, you're good. And he put them in a bag. And then he, they like, okay, that's enough. Get out of here. So he left. And then they did the DNA study, and it's like several of those children are Osama bin Laden's children. So then they did the strike, and it was, like I said, my old SEAL team that did it. So the connection. So we all have connections. We all have connections in this quantum realm. So it's interesting that I'm working to find terrorists, and then it's my old SEAL team, the specific one that I work with, that is coming in and doing the hits. You can't plan this stuff, but on a quantum level, it happens, and it's It gives you chills when you see it and you know it, you realize it, and you know it, see it on a certain level. When you get those, have an attitude of gratitude, because that attitude of gratitude is telling the universe that I like this, I want more, and the universe will give you more. So that's what I found. It's very simple. The universe is not complicated whatsoever. These quantum realms exist around us. Believe in them. It's not a lie. It's beautiful. And once you start to connect with them, then you're going to have amazing, magical experiences.
Wow. I had the chills the whole time you were telling that story. And I can relate in a way. I did a hypnosis with someone who had an ancestor that was quite demonic. And my actual instinct was, show them what they were doing to their descendants and then actually, say, how does that feel? How would it feel if you felt that? And it emboldened them. They actually enjoyed the pain. And then I was like, no, then something happened. Jesus showed up in the hypnosis and went and held him, and he melted. And that was through
Mm,
generationally, through their ancestry. That was creating going through their entire lineage. And so that released it. So that was really fascinating. But we can do this on so many different realms. And I love what you're doing. And so are you still teaching people that your programs that you do or around that work?
yeah, I have courses, and I'm building on those courses. I just started a demonic course, recognizing the demonic realm, and then learning how to, like we're talking about right now, overcome the demonic realm within you and your environment and so forth.
Yeah. And it's not fun. I've been attacked by some really dark stuff. I felt like it felt like bed bugs like all over my body. It went on for 2 weeks and finally had to have a shaman remove it from me. And there was a shaman that did an article about what it's like to be in a mental institution. And every single one of the people that he saw all had entities and attachments.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed as well. So you see a lot of that when you're in a war environment. That's where you can learn a lot. You can learn at a fast pace, but I don't recommend it. You can also do that. I mean, we're all to a certain extent in a combat zone right now
Yeah.
with the demonic realm. They're constantly trying to infiltrate us,
Yeah.
to influence our environment and so forth. So you learn, like, the skills of Archangel Michael. You send out the love, and the
Yeah.
love frequency really does a lot to protect you and stop these demonic dark energies from coming in and affecting you or those around you
Right.
as best you can. Now, I've helped a lot of people over the years. I've taken attachments they had, demonic attachments, and sent them off and covered them. But just like you talked about, some people get they feel like they get energy from this dark side. That's why people go to it to begin with, and they do to a certain extent. But to a certain extent, it doesn't go to the great levels that you're going to go with the light.
Right.
So a lot of people that aren't, maybe they're influenced, they have a lot of people around them that are kind of dark, or maybe definitely dark, or they have trauma within their lives, so forth. It creates a split. Then they allow, unfortunately, some of these entities to come in, and they feel empowered by that. So they may, part of them, of course, there's good in everyone, even those that have the dark entities
Right.
on them. There's good within everyone, and you can appeal to that, but still there is that. A lot of people like want that to a certain extent.
Right.
They want, the addictions, and they want the different things that come with that dark side. It influences them. So you can push it off. You can protect them, but they have to get involved, and they will sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes, unfortunately, it stops. They get possessed again, or something influences them. It's a very tough. But you have to be very like you're talking about. If you find yourself in a difficult situation, there's always help. There's always someone that can help you and take you to the next level or cleanse you or so forth.
Right.
So always get involved. Stay involved. Never stop. You gotta once you go to the light, they're going to really come after you. But it's not that hard.
Right.
I find it's very easy, even with a lot of us are face tragedies and so forth. You can overcome those tragedies by
Yeah.
staying in that love frequency and calling in angelic help, uh, calling in Jesus, or if you're in another uh, Muslim, Islam, has you can call in God, and also our Yahweh. If you're Jewish, you can always call in, God's support. God, and by doing that, the demonic realm is like pushed just by doing that.
Right.
If you're Christian, Jesus. So there's lots of different ways you can just call upon those life forces, and that creates an environment. Just the thought of that creates an environment around you that protects you.
Yeah. And so it's about raising your frequency and vibration because there's a point where they can't attach to you because you can remove one, as you said, and another one can come to you. But it's all about staying true to you, loving yourself, being of service to others, loving others, and staying as you say, staying in that love vibration. And the more you do that, the more synchronicities, the more magic and miracles will start to happen in your life, and stay with that. It's a great way to live. So,
Yeah, that's very beautiful, Lisa. And when I teach people, I say start simple. When you go to the store, just send love to someone. Don't look at them and send them love. I found that
it
out.
might be a
Like
little creepy.
I'm looking at and they're loving. I'm loving everybody. It's like this is why I send love. I like and people look at me like, what are you doing? Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be that intense with it. So I'm just thinking it, and then you get more comfortable with it. I'm driving in the car. I'm sending everybody love. That's hard for me sometimes, but still do it. Uh, but even in combat zones, of course, I talk about, doing it in combat zones. I have compassion, sympathy for all those, but I send them love and it usually handles the situation. I've been mortared. Mortars have almost come down on me. And I imagined a bubble of light, of love surrounding me. And then the mortar stopped. They were coming closer, closer, closer. And I did the bubble. I said, oh, do a bubble of. So I did the bubble of love and the mortar stopped. So you can definitely, in the worst case scenarios, like I've described, almost getting RPG'd and almost being mortared. I saw another time, I saw RPG actually fired and it was coming in my direction. I could see it moving right to me. And I just thought, it's not going to hit me. And I thought I thought love, and it got stuck in the barbed wire. I don't know how that happened. It got stuck, didn't blow up. The bomb disposal guys came the next morning, pulled it out, and took it away. But wow,
Wow.
it's amazing. You never know how this is going to work out. You just have to stay. You have to stay, and it's very difficult. Of course, I'm describing situations that would most people. I mean, cars. I've heard of people with cars barreling down on them. Big trucks. They're in an intersection, and truck is run through the intersection. That's coming down on them, and they think that love frequency, and the next thing they know, they're they're just still driving,
Wow.
and they don't even know. It's kind of like that time thing we talked about. They don't even
Right.
know how that happened, but they said that prayer. They go to that love frequency, and not going to work every time for
Right.
everybody, I guess. But if you're definitely very astute in this, and this is one of the things I would challenge everybody right now. You're seeing that we're talking about how effective this is in incredibly worst case scenarios. Start simple now, and you could build up and save your life, save the people around you. You never know what might happen. So
Well,
it's
you're
yeah.
also raising the frequency and vibration of the collective, Oops, you froze. Oh, yeah, you froze for a second. You're raising the
Yes.
frequency and vibration of the collective. And so with that, you're creating more miracles for yourself and others.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reason why I would love to have people get more involved because by them raising their frequency, it raises the vibrational frequency of all of us. And when we do that, then all of these dark realms that are happening right now, you go into any city, it seems like anywhere in the world almost, you're seeing homeless, you're seeing people living on the streets. We raise the frequency enough that stops completely, and there's no more wars, and there's no more disease. This this is a possibility for us moving forward.
Let's stay with that. Okay.
Yeah, in the end.
Yeah. So, anything else before we go that we haven't covered? Because we really kind of run the gamut here. Anything else you want people to know?
No, I mean, this is the quantum realm, like we're describing, is phenomenal. We have gone deep into it on a lot of different levels, but I think we've kept it to a level that most people can understand and even use in their lives right now.
Right.
So it is quite amazing. We have been involved in it for quite some time. We're doing amazing things with it. There's no reason why everyone can't be involved in this, and it just starts with the thought of love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. And this was an amazing conversation, and I look forward to your chapter in the book.
I do too. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for including me. Wow, this is
Oh, of
great.
course.
Great authors. Wow.